Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's have another look at the Games Workshop Intellectual Property Guidelines. Because while yesterday I did do a shorts video on the topic, I also had commenters wanting a more in-depth view. And since you asked, you shall now receive. So let's look at just how extreme one could argue that these intellectual property guidelines truly are. For a start, let's look at the standardized rules regarding fan fiction, hobby books, magazines, fan artwork, and fan sites, for which Games Workshop demands that they must not include text, artwork, or imagery copied from any official Games Workshop material, make it clear that they are unofficial without using any Games Workshop logos, and not be prejudicial to the goodwill, reputation, or integrity of Games Workshop or its intellectual property. In addition to this, there are additional rules for fan fiction, hobby books, and magazines, as well as fan artwork, such as them being non-commercial, and also not being publicly distributed except for no-charge digital distribution, with fan sites having a specific requirement of not posting or displaying rules or stats copied from any official Games Workshop material. So allow me to start off by explaining just how extreme these rules are when you actually look at them. For a start, magazines are, according to these rules, no longer allowed to feature anything from Games Workshop unless they are specifically already personally owned by Games Workshop. For example, magazine publications such as PC Gamer are simply put no longer allowed to cover Total War Warhammer at all, as it is an official Games Workshop product, and PC Gamer does fall under the category of a magazine. Now, I'm not exactly a fan of PC Gamer these days thanks to all the hot takes that they've been putting out, but when your rules are so extreme that even they aren't supposedly safe from your intellectual property guidelines, then you absolutely deserve criticism. But of course, it is far from the only example of just how extreme things can get here. Allow me to go back to the fan site situation to see another really good example. For if you make the argument that Warhammer-themed groups on social media constitute a fan site, and knowing how autistic Games Workshop can be with the enforcement of these rules, that is something they just might try, then posting the official rules regarding unpainted models constitutes a violation of these intellectual property guidelines. By now, some may be thinking that I'm being a bit unfair by pointing out just how extreme someone could interpret these rules. However, given that it is Games Workshop that we are talking about, and also given how Games Workshop appears to be actively going after fan animators now, I believe it is prudent to point out just how extreme the rules can get. And on that subject, let's talk about the infringement section, and specifically what Games Workshop has to say about fan films and animations, stating, and I quote, "Individuals must not create fan films or animations based on our settings and characters. These are only to be created under license from Games Workshop." In other words, fan films are completely banned, which is already pretty extreme, but even worse when you have to wonder what exactly constitutes a fan film. Because technically, this could include things such as lore videos. After all, they are videos on YouTube uploaded by fans. However, even if we are to assume that Games Workshop is feeling generous about that particular part of this topic, lore videos would still not be truly safe. And to demonstrate what I mean, let's look at the illegal download section of infringements, which says, and I quote, "Our publications, audiobooks, and other material protected by copyright must not be illegally uploaded, shared, or distributed in any format." In other words, if you do a lore video in which to illustrate your point you read from a short story that is officially protected by copyright, then technically you are in direct violation of this particular rule. As you can see, the infringement section of the property guidelines are actually quite extreme when you actually read them. So much so that even the modding community is not safe. This is because technically video game mods could be considered apps, and both fan-made games and apps are specifically banned via the infringements section. I could keep going on about this subject as well, such as pointing out the fact that the handful of fan websites, artwork, etc. that are allowed under these rules can still be taken away the moment the creator says something that Games Workshop does not politically agree with. But really, that would be beating a dead horse by this point. That said, I know a lot of people are now going to be pointing out that these rules are simply not enforceable, thanks to concepts such as fair use being in existence. And while that may be true, the point of Games Workshop's actions here aren't to create rules that are actually enforceable. Instead, these rules exist to intimidate the fan base, via the threat of an expensive court case. And also, it should be noted that these are some very convenient guidelines that Games Workshop could utilize in an attempt to justify just about everything, regardless of whether or not they are actually in the right to do so. Of course, GW is now facing backlash over these actions. Hopefully, this backlash will be severe enough enough to get them to change their mind. Unfortunately, that is not something for which I will be holding my breath. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.